begin by saying thank you, everybody, for being here. Okay, can you hear me okay? Is that a little bit better than me trying to yell? I apologize for that. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here this evening. My name is Kenney. I'm the Senior Project Manager with DDOT. Obviously, you're all here because you're very concerned about this project. We appreciate that you're here. We have two goals this evening. First, to give you background on the project. During project development, how did project development occur to get to the heart of the project? And secondly, we wish to answer all of your questions and hear your concerns. Next slide, please. Also, Chief Engineer Nick Nicholson is joining us this evening. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Is this distracting?
Yes.
Is it okay to move this?
Yeah, sure.
So this project began a long time ago, in 2004. And it began with a transportation study. It was the Columbia Heights Mount Pleasant transportation study. It was mentioned earlier, and you were correct in saying that it identified left turns as a problem. People were using shortcuts, and just to be clear, I'm talking about Kenyon westbound, people seeking to go southbound on Adams Mill. Because of the median that was there, left turn was not allowed. What we found is that although that was inappropriate, people were cutting through the alley. They were also making U-turns, going northbound a little bit and making U-turns, which was unsafe. This was behavior that should be curbed. It was illegal behavior, and it could be curbed through Metropolitan Police Department enforcement. At that point, it wasn't a DDOT safety improvement project per se. When our federal sponsors look at this project, they say, well, people are behaving illegally, we need to enforce that. That will fix the problem. We had a second study in 2009. It was the Mount Pleasant transportation study. And what was significant here was a finding that motorists driving northbound on Adams Mill, seeking to make a right turn on Irving, had a propensity to mount the curb. The reason for that is because the radius, and that's the measure of the radius of the curb, was too small. It measured about 7 feet. And it's because if you recall how it used to look, it was kind of like a tight angle. You had to whip the car around. That is a major concern to DDOT because that presents a risk to pedestrians, people with strollers, people in wheelchairs that are on the sidewalk that don't have time to react when a right-turning car could mount the sidewalk. So that was a game changer. That was where we were able to call this an intersection safety improvement project. We were also able to secure federal funding at that point because it was a safety project. Some of the primary goals of the project, so we wouldn't just come out and address one thing. This is an opportunity to make the entire intersection safer. Safer for vehicles, safer for pedestrians, improve the lighting, high visibility crosswalks, ADA ramps so that it's compliant for ADA, plant trees. These are the addition of bike lanes. These are things that DDOT would look at now in a roadway project to make it better for all of the users of the intersection. Next slide, please. The DDOT understands that we cannot design projects in a vacuum. If we take our projects from planning and go right to final design and don't consult with the community, then we won't have a win-win. We don't live every day in that intersection or that corridor, so we need to hear from you. The way that we do that, there's two ways. We rely on the ANCs. They're our conduit. That's how we hear from the community for special concerns, special requests. You may recall the traffic barriers, the temporary barriers that were in Irving, blocking on the west side. And that wasn't appropriate, that was unsafe, and that wasn't a permanent fix. One of the things we worked with the ANC on late was a coordination of the addition of a sidewalk and the location of the bus stop. So, I'm sorry, there are two ways we work with the community. The first is that every time we reach a major milestone, we send our plans to the ANC commissioners. Major milestones are 30%, 65%, 90%. At that time, I will be the first to admit that it's hard for everybody to understand, and engineering plans. So DDOT offers to come visit the ANCs, also to go to community meetings, which we did. We went to 5 of them as evidenced by resolutions from the years 2009 to 2012. And these are times where the ANC actually said, thank you for submitting your plans to us. We've heard, or we've addressed our comments. We understand enough to provide a resolution. This is an indicator to DDOT that we've coordinated effectively with the community. It is also the time that DDOT would say, if you need renderings, as we've produced here, this is an example when, obviously we want to get the point across, and we wanted to see what the renderings look like. That's our opportunity to do more, to convey the message. And obviously, it wasn't perfectly clear. We acknowledge that, and we need to do something about it. But I just want to say that the ANCs, that we do rely on the community input during the project design development. Next slide, please. I'd like to kind of associate everybody with just how the intersection was reconfigured to be safer. The brown image, or the brown hatching here, represents the old medians. That's the old configuration. It was quite easy for southbound traffic to kind of use a chute here and continue right on and through your neighborhood to get to points south. The left turn could not be facilitated for Kenyon westbound because of this median. They were shortcutting through the alley. That's a very dangerous condition. U-turning here. This is the location where the right turn was a problem. This is too tight. The radius was 7 feet. That's where our study suggested making an improvement. The squaring up of this intersection is what makes it safer. The westbound drivers on Kenyon, you can see a center line of the road is labeled here. That center line shows how the vehicle will drive westbound and then be able to make what's a fairly easy to navigate left turn as opposed to anything that was illegal from before. What I want to focus on is the yellow lines. This is in squaring up the intersection. There's a shift south, and that shift is important. It facilitated the left turn, but as you can see, once that happened, we didn't want to pull cars way out here and make them hook back. We had to make this as safe as possible. It meant the right turn movements and the straight movements to Kenyon and also northbound to Adams Mill had to occur in the space that was what I refer to as the bullnose. And that's the area where trees have recently been cut. The reason for it is, this is an aerial view, we had to pull that back. This is where the stop bar is going to be for cars turning right on Irving. Another point that I'd like to make right now, well, let me go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Once we settled on reconfiguring the geometry in an XY coordinate space, or down on the plan view, we had to figure out how the vertical tied in. And as you can see, the right turn used to occur here where the red car is shown. This is Irving, looking down Adams Mill and Irving. The car that's here, when it's being asked to stop over at this position, do you see there's a vertical difference from Irving because it's on an increasing grade, and then Adams Mill is on a downgrade. This is the vertical difference that had to be made up. So it all works in order. The left turn first, that we needed to move to get the left turn. Then the right turn movements happened in the bullnose because the Irving was higher than Adams Mill. We had to raise Adams Mill, and what we had proposed first was to raise all of Adams Mill. One thing you could consider is reducing the grade on Irving, but that would have had impacts to retaining walls and the homes. We have very tight right-of-way here. We're also challenged by the topography. There's a drop-off here to Beach Drive, so we have very limited real estate to work with. So I hope I've got the point across of why Adams Mill had to raise if we're matching grade here for right turns on Irving. Next slide, please. This is an image of the final pavement markings for the project. And I'm just putting this in here so you can just kind of see what the ultimate product will be. Stop bars here, no longer just a quick chute down to Adams Mill, you have to stop. You're kind of at a 90-degree turn, which is safer. There's a stop bar for bicyclists here, also a bicycle lane that continues on to Irving. We do have full bicycle lanes added here. There's shadow condition at the intersection. High visibility crosswalks. So this kind of gives you the impression of what the intersection would look like with its full safety improvements. I had talked earlier about the need to raise northbound Adams Mill to match into Irving. What we first proposed was raising the entire street, Adams Mill southbound and northbound, and we had a wall out here. And that was in our 30% design. That was also in our 65% design. And at that point, that's when DDOT's feeling like we're moving on to 90%, we're pretty close to having this completed. It was that 65% review that we met with the ANC and we were asked, can you do something better? Because when we were to build this wall, we were raising the roadway 3 feet. The wall has a footing, probably about 12 feet wide, that has to go 3 feet into the ground because it has to be below the frost line. That would impact all of the trees on this slope, including the significant 52-inch red oak and all of the smaller trees that kind of provide a green buffer as you're driving down southbound Adams Mill. We looked at it. I'll be honest, there's hesitancy when design has progressed to a certain point and you have to go redesign. But DDOT felt this was a place where we could get a win. We asked our designer, we gave them an extra task order to redesign this. And that's where the idea for the median wall came up. That's what we came up with, the idea of the median wall. So essentially, we moved the wall. This is a 200-foot wall. 200 foot of impact along the tree line was moved to the median. And now we've staggered. We still match in at northbound Adams Mill like we needed to. But for southbound, we were able to have it stay on the existing grade. Next slide, please. There have been some questions about the no trucks or buses signs. And they were out there in the existing condition. One of the things that I want to make sure is clear is that everybody knows these signs will be reposted. And I can offer an explanation on that. The radius for the right turn was 7 feet. National Design Code requires for passenger vehicles 13.8 feet. We were able to achieve 14 feet. We would have preferred making it safer for any and all vehicles, but because of the very tight right-of-way, the best we could do was 14 feet, which is acceptable for passenger vehicles. So these signs will be reposted. It's because the intersection is safer, but it's not safe enough for the long semi-trucks that you see on the freeway. They can't navigate the U-turn there. Okay? The other thing I'd like to point out is DDOT does not anticipate any increase in truck traffic as a result of this project. There's nothing we've done here that says, please begin using this as a main trucking route. Next slide, please. I'd like to take a minute to address the trees. Increasing the tree canopy is a primary goal of DDOT. Our Urban Forestry Administration is tasked with overseeing that. They're doing a wonderful job. They were involved with this project. They were very excited when the median wall concept was proposed and we salvaged the 52-inch tree and trees down the slope. One of the things that we did do, and it was raised earlier, is all of the trees that were in the bullnose had to be cut. And that's obviously because that's where we proposed the new location for right turn and through vehicles from southbound Adams Mill to be stopped. These trees have been cut. There are 3 more proposed to be cut along this slope. One is down here. Could be, we call it a head knocker with a new sidewalk being placed. It's too low. There's another one here that has to be removed to facilitate construction to improve the bus stop. The second, so let me first say, 11 trees approximately, well, exactly, are removed here. Even though we took the bullnose, we had the advantage of creating new green space. This used to be the asphalt road for southbound. And in that new green space, DDOT is planting 7 total trees, 3 elms, 4 surface barrier red buds over here. Then you have a surprise issue right here. When we got to construction, we saw that there was an erosion problem due to runoff. There are deep gullies formed on the slope. We've been in consultation with the Park Service. They they were excited that we were going to address the erosion problem as part of this project. In doing that, there are 2 small trees here, north of the 52-inch red oak, that will have to be cut as we restore the slope, and then we will be planting new trees, 8 total, along that slope. The net gain, 23 new trees, 20, that doesn't look right. I believe that's 13. Is that, Tom?
Yeah, there were originally per plan, I believe, contact 8 or 9.
Okay.
With the addition of 7 there and other areas.
Am I just reading that right? Is it 23, 23?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So it's a zero net gain. 20 renewed, 23 removed.
Between 23 and 13.
Okay, that's what I had understood. I'm sorry I'm having trouble reading that.
Sorry, can you
Yes.
just repeat, so just to be perfectly clear?
Okay, and I apologize. Let me repeat. With the removal of trees and then the planting of new trees, and I was also wanted to point out, most of the trees that were here in the bullnose were not native. They were invasive species. The trees that we are planting are native species, 2 to 2.5 inch caliber, and there's a net gain of 10 trees, 13 removed, 23 replaced. The 12 we've noted saved here are the 12 that would have been impacted should we have placed the retaining wall out here along the park edge. Next slide, please. We were asked about the lighting that was selected for the project. The existing lighting that's on Adams Mill is Cobra Head. That's a standard that DDOT uses, and certainly we would be okay with placing that standard out there because it's something that we use and it's acceptable. The Washington Globe, because of the historic neighborhood and the zoo, is something we looked at to apply on Adams Mill along Adams Mill. The issue is that with the tiered nature with the northbound and southbound, when the Washington Globes were placed on the southbound side, which was lower, the globes glow very bright, and it becomes an issue for drivers, the glare. They're blinding. And so in order to maintain the minimum lighting requirements for our streetlight policy, we couldn't place Washington Globes. We did not feel it was acceptable. We needed a higher mast arm light. We didn't feel the Cobra Head, which is on Adams Mill, was acceptable. I know it does not match what's out there, but DDOT felt that this was the more appropriate standard to use. So this gives us the mast arm, the higher elevation, and it's a historic nature. So these are the lighting standards that were chosen. At the intersections, these are the lighting standards that DDOT customarily uses because it gives ample lighting to the crosswalks. It's very important for us when we go to a project, whether it's a streetscape project or a new intersection improvement, to improve lighting for pedestrians crossing at intersections. This is the primary way we make that improvement, is with the high lighting. Next slide, please. So I've told you a little bit about the median wall. At first, it's a retaining wall. There's a differing elevation between the roadways, and I've explained why that differing elevation is there. This is the northbound side. The wall right now, if we were to walk out there, DDOT hasn't completed filling this roadway to its new elevation. So this wall is much higher. You're seeing it in its constructed state before fill. When it's final, this will be 34 inches tall. So, approximately this high. It will be lower than a vehicle windshield, and also as seen from the sidewalk, it will be, about that high. One of the things we understand, it looks utilitarian. It's a concrete barrier. It's bright white. And what DDOT feels is the appropriate thing is to find a way to make this more aesthetically pleasing. And what we've done is we have a proposal here to clad the wall with a stone facing. The reason the wall was that there's a barrier here, and I hope everybody, it probably goes without saying, is there's a 3-foot drop on the other side of this wall, and the vehicles have to be protected from that drop. Similarly, or a second reason why a barrier was necessary is we have a nearly 90-degree turn up here as you approach Kenyon and Irving. The Jersey shaped barrier is the safest barrier. That's what DDOT selected for safety reasons. Energy is dissipated for low-speed impacts, and it's also the best protection for high-speed impacts. We all know reasons why vehicles may collide with this barrier. Distracted drivers, impaired drivers. There's even driver memory. There may be folks that don't recall a turn at the end of this, and we have a duty to make sure that southbound drivers are protected from crossover. Next slide, please. This is the view from southbound Adams Mill. The wall is much higher. It's 3 foot for the 34 inches for the protective barrier, along with about 3 foot for retaining wall height. We also are proposing, as a result of hearing from the community, to provide a stone facing on this wall. This is the side, the ridge, if you will, where Beach Drive is down here. This is the historic tree, 52 inches in diameter red oak, but this is the other growth in the canopy that we heard from the ANC was worth protecting. This is the 2-tiered approach that our engineers came up with. We felt that it was going to be a win, and we still feel it is. Being a project like this, any project that DDOT does today, we can't just come and take right of way at will to make a perfect intersection. A DDOT project today is it's a lot of trade-offs. There's a lot of input, and what we're seeing here is trade-offs that affect everybody. There's safety, there's an aesthetic improvement, there's an environmental sensitivity, there's a left turn, there's in other parts of the project, there's the sidewalk to the bus stop at Irving, there's bicycle lanes further south from here, and this is Sharrow here. So, at the end, DDOT looks at the big picture of the net gain for the community, and this is what we're bringing, this is what we're proposing to mitigate, and we're sorry it came to this many people for us to have to propose this, but we're hoping that this would be pleasing and allow the contract to continue. Just to let you know, we were supposed to finish in September. We're still on track for being done in September. So, our contractor is on schedule, we're on budget, and we would appreciate hearing feedback quickly if the community is amenable to this concept, if there's special stone that you'd like to request, or there are things that we need to work out of that, we want to hear from you. Next slide, please. The last thing I'd like to close with this, Thomas Pipkin is our community outreach representative. He's very responsive. He's in charge of working on our project's website, responding to any questions, and also directing questions that he cannot answer to my attention. So, we promise to be responsive. And with that, I've concluded my presentation. First, I would like to thank all of you for your attention. I hope I didn't confuse you with any of the details. If you require any clarification, let me know. But I'd also like to take this time to field questions.
Okay, so, all right, so we're going to take the questions.